Okay, so Justin, will you tell us about taking a 4-minute song and getting a feature script out of that?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I grew up in Austin, Texas, which has a phenomenal kind of music scene. So I was really immersed in the kind of art of storytelling in song format. There's just some great troubadours who kind of come from the Austin area. So my two passions, creative passions in the world, are basically music and film, and so these kind of things collide in this one project. Which when you write something, being passionate about it is kind of the key to jumping off. So um, Todd Snyder is this great Americana singer songwriter that I'm a longtime fan of, 20 plus years probably, and I was watching this show. Alice and I were at the show in Austin, and he started in on the song, played a few chords, and I was like, "Oh, remind me to tell you about an idea that just popped into my head." So it literally was just a flash like that of this cool indie kind of contained story that could be done based on the song. And so
he kind of leaned over and was like, "Hey, remind me later." And I was like, "Okay, babe," because we're business partners and we're married. And when you're married to an artist, as I'm sure you guys all know, they have lots of ideas, and sometimes they come to fruition and sometimes they don't. And so you have to take each with a grain of salt and wonder if it's real. And as soon as we left the show, we went and grabbed a beer, and Justin immediately was already mapping out the outline in his head. And I feel like you created the pitch and
probably within a couple of weeks I had like the story and the kind of step outline kind of done, and we flew to Portland where Todd was playing kind of a retrospective show in his hometown. He lives in Nashville now, but he was in his hometown doing this big retrospective show. And so Portland's kind of an important part of this whole film process and story. And so we went there and pitched him on this idea, and he was on board, and I was kind of off and running on the script from there. And I brought in a great co-writing friend and collaborator named Craig Ugeritz to come in and kind of bat the script back and forth with me. I had the story and all the characters pretty much mapped out in quite detail, and then we just kind of started working on the script. To get to the kind of point of your original question is like the song is sort of kind of really just takes place at the motel, and it's kind of the second act. It's the jumping off point, I would say, for the second act and how we kind of formed the story. And so the idea was, okay, we've got these characters in this setting, and there are these kind of simple plot points that happen in the song. What happened to Jesse, and what brought him to this place? And so that's what the first act was, is like, what did he do to get to this motel, seedy, divey motel? And what's the backstory and baggage between him and the Carla character that, goes back years, even before the first act happens. And then ultimately the third act is about, paying off all those things that we set up in the first act and the second act. And, what are the consequences of these decisions that the two characters have made in the first act and the second act, and even prior to that. And, is Jesse, this character, is he going to kind of resort to his normal running away flight from, tricky situations, or is he going to figure out what he really kind of wants and needs in life, and kind of, make a decision to kind of take that other fork in the road, so to speak.
And I would add that you said what's their baggage, but also it turns out what's their love too. Like you definitely see both sides of the spectrum in this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the song, super inspirational. Todd and his entire catalog and all his just, repertoire of storytelling was, really integral part of me, making up this story and these characters and this script. And we were able to take just so much kind of stuff from his other songs and his stage performances and other things like that, and really kind of weave that in throughout the story. The song is a huge part, and especially the second act and the characters, but we kind of took his entire catalog and kind of embedded it into the script and into the film ultimately.
Okay. So Michael, we realized pretty early on in that first act that you are actually singing and playing, which is not a given in movies. You kind of take a minute to be like, wait a minute, they're not showing his left hand, but then they do. And obviously you can really sing and play. What's your music background?
You know, I started playing drums years ago as a kid, and then things just sort of, you know, took away from there. It's something that it's really dear to me, but that I've never really dug into. And then this was like, there's one project that sort of got me back into playing, and this was sort of the second project that had a musical aspect to it. So I was pretty excited to be, you know, doodling around on the guitar. So it's sort of like a happy place for me.
And outside of Patriot, have you ever had bands or other outlets for your music?
No. So it was kind of like you know, just a reminder of what part music plays in my life. You know, things like Patriot and things like Hard Like Love Song.
Yeah. Do you think that might change now after this project?
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Like I've started playing again, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was definitely a part of this storytelling experience that I really loved, and you know, and the people and the core people, you know, everyone that was involved. It was a pretty fast shoot, a hard shoot, but you know, it was like a family being in that hotel. You know, we're all in close quarters.
Yeah. So intense. And that actually leads to my question for you, Sophia. We have the second act. We have a pretty much a half-hour sequence that's all the two of you in the hotel, in the motel, with a vast emotional range. So Sophia, what was it like for you to shoot that sequence?
It was so beautiful and so free and wildly painful and wildly uncomfortable, you know, to go to such a place, you know, and Michael and I can laugh about it, but to go to such a place is so raw and so vulnerable, and you have to choose to see inside of the greatest sort of struggle and self-doubt that a person could have. And yes, it's a character, but you know, you have to find these points, and truly there, you know, Michael and I had just met, and thank God for us, we realized we were like kindred spirits right off the bat. And you know, we sat in many a restaurant and many a bar in LA, and just were like, we're gonna have to tell each other all our secrets. You know, we really jumped in as friends and compadres. But that scene in particular, I joke to some people that it was sort of like the arm wrestling version of a pinky swear. You know, it had to be this bond, and it required such kind of aggressive commitment. And you know, it was at moments kind of out of body, and it was cool because, you know, it was really just us. And Jas, you know, you were the other person in the room because, you know, Justin and Allison, you guys were at Video Village, but you were in the next motel room over. So we were sort of in this strange little world where the door would close and we just had to go somewhere. And Michael and I decided we were going to stick with each other. And it's not that I didn't trust you, you know, I love you, like you're my family, but when you were like, oh, we got it, I kind of went, are you sure? And I looked at Jas, and Jas like moved the camera away from his face and went, you know, holy hell, you guys. And that's when we knew we had something, you know, when the DP said it was great. And then we got to, you know, merge the hotel rooms and let people in. But yeah, that was a mental, beautiful, scary, exhilarating ride. And it required a kind of commitment and familiarity that I think people often don't get from day one. And we were so lucky, you know, to be kind of paired as this creative team, and just to go to some really scary places together. It was a ride for sure.
And I'll add the just the chemistry between the two of them is off the charts, and it's the performances are so layered and nuanced and authentic. I couldn't be prouder of how amazing these performances turned out from both of them. These two are just so talented and prepared and professional, and what they were willing to kind of put on film for us was just remarkable. And I'm just so impressed by how just tremendous both of them did in this role. So,
and everybody who watches it says the same thing, Michael and Sophia. They're just like, those two together is just electric. So, and that's what you want, right? And you guys really brought it.
Thanks. And you know, I have to say, not only is that sequence such a testament to, you know, Michael, you, as for me as a woman, making me feel so safe to do that work at work, but also, you know, Justin and Allison, we talked through so many pieces of the script, and Justin, you know, it was something you'd worked on for so long, and there's a weird thing that no one really, I think, acknowledges, that the folks who write a film, in a way, it's like your baby, and then you have to go let it be in the world, and there were things that, you know, Michael and I created in that space, and it was really, it was hard and beautiful, I think, for all of us to go there, but you guys gave us the room to take it in our own direction. And once we were Jesse and Carla, to create Jesse and Carla's world, and it requires a lot of people showing up to make art, I think, to let it begin to have its own life. And what a time. It was so cool.
And the way you capture it too, I think it was sort of geared up so that we could sort of, you know, we'd be shooting takes on the fly. If, like Sophia said, the three of us are in the room, and Jas would be like, okay, come on, when we're shooting on film, so it's a whole different thing when you're shooting on film. Not the entire film, but a lot of the sequences. And so each take is precious. And then there was just moments where the three of us are just like, okay, we're gonna go like this. And it would just sort of, a lot of it was happening organically, where we were all just sort of speaking to each other, you know, sort of kinetically. It became like its own little, you know, organism. It was a really fun way of storytelling, you know, of capturing the story. Madness, but so fun.
Madness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love
You
it.
know?
Well, Jas, I have a question for you, and I'm almost positive people will be viewing this after the movie, but let me ask, are you comfortable talking about the last scene?
Am I comfortable talking about the last scene?
Well, I'm just putting that to the room.
Oh, that's to everybody?
Yeah, I think this is going to air after, post-screening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to talk about it from a visual perspective, Jas, and just hear maybe from all of you about shooting that last scene. It's basically a party scene, poolside. Almost everyone in the movie is in there, or at least all the good guys. So what was that like for you, Jas, wrangling that scene?
Well, I mean, technically that was the last night of the shoot, and so, you know, it's somewhat shot it in sequence, and it was an all-night shoot after a long day, and we were at another location, and we made this mad rush back to the hotel to shoot this scene at dawn. So it's literally shot at dawn, which I think is, you know, important for the story. It's kind of that the whole movie kind of occupies that space between night and day, and that kind of twilight. And so, you know, Justin had the intention of always trying to capture that in that time frame. So it was a mad rush getting back over there and, you know, making sure everything was up and running. But you know, it was kind of like Michael was talking about shooting in the room. It was like we didn't go in with a very specific plan in terms of like a shot list or a storyboard, and we're like, let's just, you know, get there and have the camera be a fly on the wall or a fly in the pool in this situation, and let the scene evolve kind of organically, and then try to find those moments that capture what's happening in this scene. So, you know, and you're up against the clock because the sun's coming up, and everybody's exhausted, and it's the last day of I don't know, like a 20-day shoot, which is, as I think everybody here would attest to, was not easy. And
I'd say 20 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 nights shoot.
That's a lot of nights.
But I think that kind of attitude, I think because everybody was so tired and it was such at the end of this long run, is that it was kind of very cathartic in a way, because it was the last scene that we were shooting of the film, of this very kind of challenging, difficult film. And so I think that the joy that you kind of see and experience in that scene is very genuine.
Well, Michael and Sophia, did it feel a lot like partying? Was it different from shooting other scenes, or was it just, performance, the same sort of feeling?
I don't know if it felt like partying, because, to Jazz's point, when you're quite literally shooting a scene at dawn, you're racing against the sun. There is no second take. There's no option to wait on the light. It's coming. And it was a wild experience, but, even to the point that Justin made, the end of a 20-night shoot, we'd all been living like vampires together in this small room, sort of excavating the depths of human emotion together. And then we were sitting and we all had our feet in this swimming pool, and no one knew what time it was or what day it was. And it was strangely cathartic and joyous and perfectly bizarre in its weirdness as a moment. And I think that some of the laughter and some of the joy and some of the ease that you see in that scene is just so genuine, not only to the characters, but to us as this unit, as this cast and crew, to the moment we were experiencing. And it was really kind of magical, existing in a duality of on-screen experience and off-screen reality.
Yeah.
I mean, to that point, Sophia, like today we were getting a lot of texts from other cast members and sending pictures, especially from that last day. And I commented on one of them. I said, it's so wild. Everybody looks so like elated and not exhausted at all. And, this was at the end of 20 nights and but the sun was up and everybody, it was just like this party atmosphere for a minute after we finally said, that's a wrap. It was like, after you said that's a wrap, it was just, this expression of emotion that was really heightened. And the cast pictures really said it all to me.
Yeah. We kind of pushed through to a very weird, surreal place, I would say, for that last scene, where everyone was just so exhausted and just kind of beyond their limits, that it was this just weird place that you get, maybe when you're starving in the woods somewhere or something, where just things get a little loopy and strange. I was playing music as loud as could be, like during the scene, to kind of get everybody, into more of a party mood. A song that didn't end up being the song in the movie, but a song that like I had envisioned as the end song in the movie. And we were just running around, and I do a lot of improv commercials. So I'm used to that kind of just run around and grab stuff kind of vibe when you have to sometimes. So we were just running around, like setting up little moments and just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So it was fun.
I have to say too, and this is important because my crew still talks about it to this day, is that, this is, like you said, 20 days of nights, and Justin and Allison, somebody engineered, and a massive amount of pancakes showed up just as the sun was rising. And I am not kidding. I don't know, was this a year and a half ago? It is still talked about. Pancake dawn rap party to this day.
Pancakes and beer, I think.
Pancakes and beer, yeah, exactly.
Best.
That is the highest compliment you could have given me as a producer, Jas. Thank you very much, because that was orchestrated and it was not easy. So that's very cool. Yeah.
It lives on.
I want to go back to the script and talk about some elements that is, if memory serves, were not fully explained, starting with the cast Jesse is wearing. There's a moment where, if that is explained. I didn't catch it. There's another moment where there's Jesse's stepdad is mentioned in his last name, and it just kind of goes by, and you're like, whoa, something dark happened there. So I wanted to ask you, Justin, about the sort of craft of leaving things out and how you walk that line between sort of mystery and like incoherence in a plot.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, and there's some funny stories behind some of those elements, and maybe some less funny stories behind some of those elements. I certainly prefer narrative to have nuggets of backstory and things dropped in this, in, you know, as the plot unfolds, where they're not always fully explained. You get the gist and the essence of what that statement from him about his stepdad means without having to know kind of the kind of nuts and bolts of how, you know, what that relationship was like. And obviously he didn't have a good relationship with his stepdad, so, you know, that's kind of just lays some kind of empathy maybe for the audience to know, like, oh, there are these other things that we don't maybe know about, you know, for this character. The cast situation is something that it's twofold.
You want to take this one, Michael?
Yeah, there was a real broken arm that happened right after this movie shot.
Oh, wow.
So that was inspiration for this particular touch. It was not the real cast, but it was set, it delayed the shoot by a little bit, and I, as they say, turn, you know, lemons into lemonade. It just sparked this idea for me. I was like, this guy runs from trouble and gets in trouble everywhere he goes. He goes around, you know, he's troubadour living out of cheap motels and making bad decisions. Why not have a broken wrist from wherever the previous trouble came from? So that was the kind of, you know, story element, character element to it. But I'll let Michael tell the story about what the inspiration came from.
I was in Australia about to head out to Los Angeles to go and commence shooting. And I was playing footy in the park with some friends. Long story short, broke the index finger on my left hand, which is my guitar playing hand. I thought it was okay. Got to the hospital and they said, yeah, you fractured it pretty badly. You're going to need an operation, and it's going to take 6 weeks before you're sort of, you know, able to use it. So instantly contacted everybody and said, bummer, but, you know, let find someone else. Let me go and find someone else. But those guys kind of stuck in, which, you know, meant a lot to me.
We were never going to find somebody else who was going to be able to bring what you brought to that character, we felt like. And there was no...
There was no consideration of us.
We got the text from Michael, and then Justin and Michael got on a call, and, you know, I saw the blood leave Justin's face for a minute because we were really close to shooting. And so, but Michael was so nice about it. Like, said, look, if you guys go find somebody and make this happen, because I feel so bad. But we never for a second even considered that.
Yeah. When you find the needle in the haystack, you don't throw it back and start looking for a new one. Yeah. That's kind of how I felt about it.
But it was kind of, you know, like one of the messages for me personally in the film was the idea that it's about being allowed the time as an individual to get back to the truth in yourself, kind of losing your way and losing what really matters, and then having the confidence or the, you know, to find love and have that sort of help you jump off. And for me, because I had, you know, with injury, it buys you time because you can't do anything. You're incapacitated to some extent. And it forces you to stop and rest and think. And it kind of, that sort of poured back into the film for me just from the outset. That fracture can sometimes give you time to, you know, just see the lay of the land. And that's what, for me, came in with Jesse, where you see, okay, he's fractured in a sense. So he's been allowed time in a sense. And now he's kind of it's sort of like his moment or opportunity to get back to his truth, which was something that for me was important about the thread in the story, and for, you know, them realizing that love and accepting it and being brave enough to sort of step forward into the unknown. It's just, you know, beautiful message.
Are you optimistic about Jesse at the end of the movie? Michael, do you feel like he's kind of, there's a chance he might get it right this time?
You know, that's the beautiful thing about the future, is it's unwritten, it's unknown for all of us. You know, we always have hope or support or whatever it is, but I'm always optimistic myself personally, and I believe that, you know, any one of us can change. So for someone like Jesse, you know, obviously I'm rooting for him. He's got a great mate in Carla, so, you know, I wish them all the best. I hope they stick it out. You know, but if you look at someone like Todd Snyder, you know, a traveling troubadour, and his story and the way that he's sort of come up to where he is now, and he's a really prominent, you know, figure in that realm, and deservedly so, you know. But it's not without sacrifice, and it's not without, you know, highs and lows, like any human. But yeah, I daily say that if he finds his truth, and if any of us find our truth, then away you go.
Yeah. Are you okay on time, Michael?
Yeah.
All of you guys?
I didn't even look at the time.
I think we can go about 5 more minutes, and then we need to wrap it.
Okay. Okay, here's one. Michael or Justin, perhaps you could field this. Another thing that's a little bit mysterious is all the hugs. There's a lot of Jesse hugs in this movie. It's this sort of motif that's so charming. And I feel like I know that guy, but also like, what's that about? Like, did you guys have any sort of agreement as to where that was coming from? Or where did it come from? How to get in the movie?
Yeah, it may have come from Todd a little bit, but it's something that as soon as I started writing the story and the script, I was just like, this guy hugs everybody. And it's sort of a way where he can disarm people that way a little bit, but also a way where, you know, he's out kind of making some bad decisions and maybe doing some stuff he shouldn't be doing. And so it's a way that we can kind of endear him with the audience as well at the same time. It's also, and this I definitely kind of stole from Todd, is like Todd himself is like very interested in kind of humanity and people, and he kind of goes out of his way to like to be in situations that a normal person might not necessarily put themselves in, and to try to kind of relate to people that maybe live on the edges and live on the periphery of society. And so the idea for me was like, this character has that kind of adventure seeking and also just like love of humanity in him. And so I thought that kind of manifest the hugging almost every character he comes in contact with, like, is a way to show that in a movie, and to be able to, you know, kind of build that kind of love for the character that we have so much love for Jesse. So
yeah. Great. Okay, one more question I have to ask about the RZA. Everyone on this call worked with him very intensively, and he's one who's not, I guess you could say he's implied in the original song, but almost wholly your invention. So what was it like developing that character and working with him?
Well, working with him was amazing. I'm a huge music fan and a longtime Wu-Tang Clan fan. You know, as they say, Wu-Tang Clan is forever, and I believe that. He is amazing. He's not only is he a genius musician, he's a really great guy. He's also, you know, a great actor. If you've seen him, you know, act and stuff before, but he's also a director too. So he really brought a lot to the table, kind of across the board. We only had him for one night, so all of that stuff that we did with him was all in one night.
And I'll add the shortest night of the year.
It was also the shortest night of the year, so we had the shortest amount of darkness to be able to capture all that stuff. And it was rather intense. It's obviously very action oriented, and a lot of stunts and grappling and stuff like that that poor Sophia and Michael were having to subject themselves to in many of the cases. So having someone who had that experience of having been on set, and I mean, he made kung fu movies before in his life, so like having someone like that who could just kind of really kind of cut to the quick of it and help us just like execute those scenes in like a couple of shots. Some of those action scenes, like we really only had a couple of shots. The gun shot scene, we only got one take of it before the sun was coming up. So like we just had to move so quickly, and having someone who's an actor but also a director in that role really kind of helped us pull it off, frankly. And
he has to go through every range of emotion too in that short amount of time. I mean, he goes from intense action scenes to then having to be totally vulnerable,
to then having his heart broken and being totally vulnerable, and then to not being able to deal with those emotions, and kind of resorting to fighting basically. And so that kind of transitions to your question about like the character. So it's alluded to in the song, obviously. This movie is inspired and based on music, and I'm a huge music fan. And so this kind of idea was, taking storytelling music and converging that with storytelling film. So the idea of having a musician in that role was something that was like from day one. I thought, oh, this would be great to have, a musician in this role. And we talked to a couple people, looked at a couple different people, but he read the script and was like, I want to do this. This is great. This character is so fleshed out and layered and real. And I want to, help kind of, bring that to life. And we just hit it off. We had this great meeting and we just talked about storytelling music, and he's sitting there like quoting Wu-Tang Clan storytelling lyrics to us, like, at the dinner table. And we're going back and forth and talking about like our favorite Leonard Cohen songs and, stuff like that. So there was just a real kismet between us, and he just brought so much to the table. And it was really important for us it's sort of a misdirect. Like you kind of think one thing about the character, and through Jesse makes assumptions about it based on the situation and stuff. And then we kind of, pull the rug out from under those assumptions, and we reverse things or peel layers away and start to reveal like, well, no, you can't judge a book by its cover. Things are much more complicated and nuanced in life. And so we really wanted to kind of work with him to make that character just really kind of be layered and complicated and dynamic and just feel real. And this movie ultimately is about kind of loneliness and trying to find people to connect with and people to kind of soldier through life with together, Jesse and Carla being the epitome of that. But that kind of theme of like, who's my 2x2 on Noah's Ark, it kind of permeates throughout the movie and kind of throughout all the characters. Jesse and Carla, obviously, the epitome of that, but also, the Lewis character that RZA plays, and also even the Officer Zach character, played by Brian Saka. A lot of the kind of things that come out through his character is also that same kind of yearning for connection with people and kind of trying to, find connection in life. And so that's kind of what the movie ultimately is all about. And so kind of being able to develop that through the Lewis character was really important to me, and something that he, really helped me bring to life. So.
Before we wrap up, Sophia, anything to add about shooting that scene?
I mean, it was kind of an out-of-body experience for me, because the first concert I ever went to without my parents was Wu-Tang Clan and Lauryn Hill at the Universal Amphitheater. And RZA showed up, and thank God Justin and I had talked about it, because I was like, I'm such a huge fan. I own so much Wu wear. Like, what do I say to this person? And it was nice to know that, you literally, like, whether it's me as the actor or my writer and director and Allison, our producer, like, everyone was excited. We were all really jazzed. Like Michael and I were, through the whole shoot, really, we were like little kids excited about what we were doing. But that day we were like, ding, 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 and there's something kind of delicious about being these grown adults with the careers that we all have under our belts, and then this other adult who we admire showing up, and we all turn into excited little teenagers. And what was really so lovely about the experience was he showed up on set, and immediately that sense of giddiness kind of evaporated, because he showed up as a partner. He showed up as a creative collaborator. He had so many thoughts and so many things to say, and through like some joy and some headbutting, as we all do as artists, I think what we landed on in these rehearsals while we were waiting for the sun to go down as a team, by the way, was here's what we have on the page. Here's the ideas we have about these people. What do we add to them, to Justin's point, to make them extra complicated, to muddy the capacity for any human who watches them or who interacts with them to, you know, as he said, judge a book by its cover. And it was in these like really sort of, you know, delicious, like throw things at the wall and see what sticks moments in a parking lot while the sun was still up, you know, waiting for dark, where I think we as a team found some things that made us all feel even more excited than we had been when we'd showed up at work that day. And there's something about when one of your heroes is willing to do that work with you, you know, someone who you're so in shock that you get to share a space with for the day, who says like, yeah, but what about that? How do we make this more complex? What do we do? And maybe what if he doesn't know this? And what if she thinks this thing, but the reality is this other thing? And, you know, I don't want to give them away because they were our sort of private conversations as collaborators, but that is such a phenomenal reminder that, you know, we're all showing up in a space to make something. And it was very, very cool, you know, as a fan and then as a coworker, to have someone like Riza show up was wild, I think, for all of us, and just kind of epic.
Epic is the right word.
Right? Yeah.
Well, we better
Cool.
jump because time is ticking. So James, thank you for having all of us. This has been amazing. And it's so fun to, I mean, some time has gone by since the shoot. And so it's kind of fun to relive some of those top moments with you guys.
Yeah, and thank you so much to the Portland Film Festival for having us, and, you know, great honor to win the, you know, the award that we won. Just, you know, shout out to Portland. Rose City's awesome. And we can't wait to get there in person when the cloud lifts on all this stuff. So thank you so much.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys. Great pleasure talking to you and seeing the movie. Yeah. Excellent work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, and James, thanks for your work. Thanks for giving us a space to reunite, because in any other year we would have been able to do this together, and we haven't had that because of the pandemic. And you offered us that moment together on Zoom tonight, and I cherish that, and I know that we all do.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. All right, guys.
See
Be well.
Yeah, you too.
Big love, guys.
Stay safe.
Bye, Kiki.